Capitol Hill, can we go there right now? The call for bipartisanship at an all-time high. The administration racing to get tax reform across the finish line before 2018. Many people say you might need a few Democratic votes for that. That deadline is more than in jeopardy, as the House still has this pretty significant hurdle of passing a budget before it can even get into the fine print or details of tax cuts and simplification. So let's begin with the Democratic side of the aisle. Representative Brian Higgins of New York serves on the House Ways and Budget Committee, and I believe he is also, you're also on the Ways and Means Committee, correct?
I am.
Okay, so let us just jump to the beginning here of what people want to know, and that is, does this bill have your support once it begins to take form?
Well, no, there's no detail to the bill, and this is fraud being perpetrated against the American people.
Okay, fraud is a very strong word.
Well, let me explain.
Okay.
The Treasury Secretary was very clear that any tax plan would not benefit the rich. Now, if you make $730,000 a year or more, your after-tax increase next year, your income will increase by 8.5%. If you make under $150,000, your after-tax income will increase by 1%. That is a direct violation of what the Treasury Secretary said. Additionally, this tax bill will add $4 trillion to the federal deficit over the next 10 years and will not impact in a positive way economic growth moving forward.
So you do not subscribe to the dynamic scoring of we believe that the tax cuts will pay for themselves, but I'll play devil's advocate here, and I'll do this the same with our Republican representative who's coming up in just a few minutes, and that is simply what we have been doing for more than 8 years has not really seemed to work to juice this economy to above 3% for an entire year. Is it not time to at least put some money back into Americans' wallets and also corporate tax cuts, bring down the corporate rate, and then maybe they don't leave the United States and get rid of jobs?
Well, firstly, let's go back to, the Treasury Secretary. He's saying that through dynamic scoring, this plan will produce $2 trillion in additional revenues. That's not true. He also said that tax cuts will pay for themselves. Tax cuts never pay for themselves. They haven't paid for themselves ever in human history. So all of this is fraud being perpetrated on the American people. Well, I believe that tax cuts targeted for those under $150,000, if their after-tax income next year increased by 8.5%, you would create demand in the economy. Where there is demand in the economy, there is growth in the economy, getting you to that 3.5%. Okay. I agree with.
Let me jump in. We actually had Secretary Mnuchin on our air this morning with Maria Bartiromo. Let you hear what he said, and then we can respond to that.
Sure.
Okay, sorry about that. We apparently don't have it, but I can just tell you, he said he's focused on economic growth, and what's good for the middle class and what's good for business ends up being good for the country.
Yeah, go ahead. He's not being truthful, because Goldman economists themselves say that there will be no appreciable growth in the economy from this tax cut plan over the next several years. Additionally, Goldman economists have said that there will be $4 trillion of deficit added over the next 10 years. The reason why Goldman's important here is because Steve Mnuchin is an alumnus of Goldman, as is Gary Cohen. And if the organization from which he came flatly rejects any of these rosy projections, then I think the American people have a right to be very skeptical.
All right. Listen, I came from local news. I'm always skeptical. However, this makes me even more disillusioned, because it was in 2015 when Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer pushed forth a co-sponsored bill with Rob Portman, the Republican from Ohio, that said that it's important to reduce corporate taxes, and that would be a good thing for the nation. Why is that not good now that there's a Republican president from that party who's in charge? Because President Obama tried to cut corporate tax rates, too.
No, I'm in support of a cut of the corporate tax rate. The current statutory rate is 35%. The proposed statutory rate is 20%. The problem with that is about 150 corporations don't pay near.
True.
Well,
then they'll have to pay higher.
Well,
then they'll get to pay higher.
Well, let me finish my thought, because here's a proposal. I would support a cut of the corporate tax rate to 20%, providing it's a minimum effective tax. That means essentially that everybody pays at least 20%. You have 100 corporations in America who are very profitable that pay less than 10%. You have 40 corporations, including Walmart, including others, that have a negative tax liability. So if everybody pays at least 20%, that will simplify, that will lower the rate, and it will produce more revenues.
Let's hope. That's what the plan is. Congressman, thank you for joining us.